All right, maybe I can roll with this. Hey, welcome everybody. Who's here for the first time to FFREIA? Raise your hands. Okay, keep them up, keep them up. All right, keep them up there, Wayne. All right. Those of you who have been here for more than one time, look at the hands that are out here for the first timers and make friends with those people, please. Because this is not just about education, it's also about building fellowship, because I know I felt very lonely. I felt like a freak. I felt like I was somebody on Mars in a cave, my eyes shut, my fingers in my ears. So this is your place to find your freak tribe, okay? So definitely make friends tonight. Make one friend. You don't need to make friends with the entire room, but just make a friend tonight. That's the goal, all right? So we're going to be covering some. Mark, do I put this thing on like magnet style? Give me one moment. I'm sorry, the smooth jazz stopped. Anyways, this is a disclaimer. We are not financial professionals. We're not CPAs. I don't even think we're professionals. So don't listen to us. Consult with a legal professional. By the way, do we have a legal professional tonight? Raise your hand. Oh yeah, all right, Marcione and the team right here. Do we have a CPA in the house? All right, then forget about that. This is dangerous. This is dangerous territory here, okay? So do not make any decisions that are going to affect you financially without consulting with a professional, of course, okay? All right, so I just want to give an opportunity. Well, first of all, before I thank Marcione Associates, I'd like to actually thank a couple people in here that make all of this happen. Kayla Thorpe, where are you? Right there. Kayla and D is in the back, okay? If guys were in charge of this would just be a disaster, okay? So the future is female. We need our women counterparts in this, but they do so much work to actually pull this together to make it as seamless as possible. So I'd like to recognize them and the hard work they do for our organization. So we depend upon the support of vendors to make what we do possible as being a 501c6 organization. Indian Kuwait, can be in compliance? Yes. So we're a nonprofit organization. We depend upon the support of sponsors, which include our paying members, as well as our premier platinum vendor sponsors. So John Marcione and his company support us and make all of this possible. The free pizza, the venue, all that stuff. So I just want to take a moment to bring John up here and associates so that you can recognize if you need. Do you need lawyers to close real estate deals in New York State? Raise your hand. Okay, if your hand isn't raised, you do not live in New York State. All right? So I just want to give John the moment to talk about what they do, as well as maybe giving them a little legal spotlight.
Well, thank you very much. I want to start out and say it's an honor and a privilege to work with you guys and to sponsor this organization. Start off to saying that many of you, who listens to 1180 WHAL? Anyone? All right, so I have a talk show Sunday morning, 12 to 1, called House Talks. If you guys get an opportunity, listen to it. It's very educational, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. But I just want to take a few minutes to say that we're here for you. That's all our office does. Is real estate law. Okay, we represent buyers, sellers, and lenders. We represent pretty much every bank in Monroe County, and we do a lot of private lending as well. So if you have that need of an attorney, and we have, I think, now 5 attorneys and about 28 paralegals. We have 2 offices, one in Henrietta and one in Pittsburgh, Victor. So pretty much covered both ends of the county. And we're here to serve you guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, by the way, who works with Marcione's company here? Woo! All right. So if you guys are considering getting a legal professional on your team, which is a member of your team, an incredibly important part of your team, definitely talk to these guys. So I've known them for an incredibly long time. My dad actually went on a shark fishing trip with John back in the day. So definitely, they're definitely best in class. So definitely contact them. All right, cool. All right, vendor spotlight. Who's a vendor member here that we can give a spotlight that just stand and shout what you do? Anybody? Mark up the graph. Go.
We manage about 450 units across Monroe County. So if you guys are looking for a manager, we also broker a lot of investment properties on market and off market. Probably 20-30% of what we do is off market. And we've got a GC company if you're looking for any service work.
Who else? Who else is a vendor member? Andy?
You are.
I know I am, but I don't want to go second.
All right, I'll go. I'm a consultant. I help people raise NOI. That's my full-time job. I have podcasts, other stuff. Yeah, pretty easy to find. TCO method everywhere. Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
The best podcast known to man.
I don't know if I feel that.
Who else is a vendor member here? Anybody? All right, I'll go. All right, so my name is Matt Druin. I'm president of FFREIA, and also I'm a vendor member. I have a real estate development company called Oak Grove Development. My partner, David, might be here. Oh yeah, there you are, David. Okay, so David and I, David runs the operations of our company. I do the fun stuff like this, so I'd like to give a shout out to David and all the people that are in operations in the real estate business because, damn, it's tough.
Oh, sorry, right? I gotta go. I got work to do.
So anyways, I guess our shout out this month is if you're interested in actually passively investing in an opportunity, David and I are going to be doing probably a $2.5 to $3 million capital raise within the next 6 months for a residential redevelopment project. And it comes with the tremendous tax benefits. Also, we're getting a lot of state and local aid to pull the project off. So if you're interested in learning more about how you might be able to participate in that opportunity, definitely pull me aside after this. I'll be sticking around. Pull David aside, and we can get your contact information and hop on a one-on-one and talk about it. So, okay, so who's a dues-paying member of FFREIA? Raise your hand. Okay. Dan, are you back there? Dan Whalen?
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool. So Dan, why do you choose to be a paid member of FFREIA? Shout it out from the rooftops.
Number one, networking. I've met a lot of great people in the last 15 months. I've been part of it. And also, we are hard money lenders. And that coincides with the networking side. So we made a lot of great strides. I think since I joined 15 months ago, I brought on 15 to 18 new borrowers.
Excellent. Anybody else want to be put on the spot? I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm sorry, Dan. But this is I don't know, when we're rethinking this organization, Jake and I and Andy and Kayla were talking about, like, this isn't really a real estate investors association, this is a mastermind, okay? And what type of mastermind can you get access to that's like $229 a year, all right? This is a great platform, general meeting, have a drink, not feel lonely, but really the magic happens when you go to our subgroup meetings that are headed up by people that have decades of experience in putting deals together and also running the operations of a business. So we have DIY REI, which is the operations part of things. Operations does not sound sexy. Carl, is operations sexy?
Yeah.
Yes, it is sexy. It's what makes you money. Who wants to make money in real estate?
Yeah.
Gosh darn it. All right, so Deal Masters, we got Joe Lavavera and Scott Spear. Joe is right there. Joe buys. You've probably seen his billboards around town, right? They're yellow and black. Love them. But Joe and Scott have been putting together creative finance deals wholesale opportunities, commercial properties, everything you can possibly think of in terms of an acquisition and growth standpoint. They are extremely well, I mean, they've along their career. Those are the people you want to listen to, not 25-year-old YouTube influencers that haven't had any experience. Like these guys have actually been battle tested in the trenches, all of them. Beth Gallagher, Carl Weeks. Carl, raise your hand, please. Is Beth here, or is she in like Florida?
Is it Florida with everybody else who's not here?
Okay, yeah. Beth still sent me my statement. Beth Gallagher, property manager, manages some other properties. So, coffee club, stand up, lad, please. Who's been to coffee club before? Raise your hand. All right. Coffee club is every single Tuesday. No, Mondays.
Oh,
That's a big. It is now Mondays. For the Akashic Record, it is Mondays at 7:30 a.m. All right. At New City Cafe, there are, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to the amount of millions of dollars worth of wealth that have been created through that little mini meetup alone. Seriously. All right. So incredible networking opportunity. So we have Rockwire. Kayla, is Beth here? Anyway, roster women in real estate. Real estate is definitely a white male dominated industry. This is definitely a great opportunity for women that are either looking to get into real estate or already are, they're looking to grow their business and also put the ladder down for other people that are looking to get into it. Is a great opportunity. So I want to hand it off to my, you don't belong to me, our VP, Jake Thorpe.
Hello. I have a few quick advocacy updates for everybody who owns a short-term rental. The city's working on maybe a ban. We've announced that a few times. We had a panel that we had a lot of our folks on that maybe mitigated that. Stay tuned. Secondarily, who's ever been to eviction court for one of your properties? Raise your hand. How many months does it take to get into eviction court? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We've been on a panel. Short of it, we pretty much fixed it. You can get in like 3 weeks now. Resolutions are much faster. A lot of work to the housing court team, so that's a huge update. You should see much faster resolutions now. And lastly, who owns buildings with 6 or more units? Raise your hand. Okay, the city is going to be doing a vacancy study in the next, a lot of details here. If you own 6 or more units in a building, you're gonna get a survey to ask you your vacancy. If you fail to respond, they think you're 100% occupied, which lowers the vacancy number, which elects us for rent control. Hooray! So do the survey. You'll invalidate their metric counts you as 100% occupied if you fail to respond. So when you get it, fill it out. If you don't, you're going to vote for rent control. So that's what I have.
Wait, no, you don't. You have one more thing. Good cause eviction in New York State.
It's
all stupid.
Oh yeah, call the governor. You should have seen an email from me, a post from me. The budget's due and they're negotiating a good cause eviction. Leave the governor a voicemail. I sent an email out. It takes 2 minutes. And these are our cool new vendor badges. If you see somebody with it, they're a vendor. They do something good that we approved of. So talk to them. They're pretty cool people. And if you have one of these, leave it at the table D.
Explain what good cause eviction is.
Good cause eviction is you can't terminate a lease. Means you have, for any reason, you have to non-payment or extensively lease violation proof. You can't just and you can't get violation-based evictions in court, as we all know. So it really makes it hard to remove those nuisance tenants that otherwise pay. So we don't want that to happen. So please call the governor and tell her not to do that. That's all I have. Back to Matt.
Cool, yeah, so good cause eviction, an example of that is, this is statewide, good cause. So so whether you own property in the city of Rochester or any place in New York State, who's ever had to evict, and I know Carl's gonna have to say something about this, evict anybody for other than non-payment? Anybody? Yeah, of course David's raising his hand. Yeah, okay, how easy is it? I heard a thumbs down and somebody stuck their tongue out. Okay, so that's not good, right?
It's a reasonably low operation.
Yeah, so usually we wait till the lease is up, like let's say somebody's smoking in an apartment and is disturbing all your neighboring residents, and you have to go to court to evict for anything other than non-payment. You can't remove them at the end of the lease. You have to have good cause and also evidence in order to support that reason to get a warrant of eviction. In the past, we've been able to use the holdover proceeding in order to get them out. Why do we want to fire a customer? Usually most people want to fire customers for good reasons, and it should be in the sole discretion of the service provider, not some third party that's completely disconnected from the situation.
Matt, quick
In my opinion.
Quick question, Matt. Is that on the residential and commercial side?
Just
Residential only right now.
It applies to residential, but most things in residential spill over into applying to commercial at some point in time. It's just a matter of time. So the important thing is that you need to have your voice heard, so don't be lazy.
I have a question. If I don't live in the area where my properties are, am I better off reaching out to my assembly person where I live or my assembly person where my properties are?
Both.
Oh, okay.
All right, cool. So I want to ask a question, and it is there anybody raising capital for a deal that they're looking to acquire right now? Raise your hand. Vlad, David, Carlo. All right, I hate to break it to you. You're too late. Sorry. Capital raising, Carlo, you're not too late. We've been working on this for months. All right, so capital raising involves relationships, and it requires time, and relationships only move at the speed of trust. I had to raise capital when I had to raise capital, and it was a knockdown, drag out battle of my life. Okay, so if you're fixing and flipping, if you are doing small buy and holds where you're bootstrapping yourself, or you're partnered with a hard money lender that's funding the deals, but you know eventually that you want to do bigger deals and buy, shopping plazas and 200-unit apartment communities and whatever, you're going to have to learn to raise capital. But the strategy starts now, learning how to do it, what conversations to have, and also if you are a tired landlord, on the converse of this sort of thing, your options in terms of being able to participate passively in real estate. You don't have to get out of real estate when you exit the active part of being in real estate. You can participate passively. So we invited a guest tonight, Mr. Jack Krupey. I originally met Jack because I sold his, is it wife or life partner? Wife, a townhouse on Camberley Place in Penfield. We started working out the same gym together. We're in real estate. Jack was in the trenches doing wholesaling, fix and flipping. He had a home investors franchise back in the day. Has gotten his ass kicked multiple times. We brought him in because he's not like this shiny influencer that's like, in the syndication space that's looking to sell you some sort of info product. He's actively in the capital raising space. He's been involved with over $3 billion worth of real estate deals. Billion with a B. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Billions. Okay? So we invited him on here. He's flown in from Puerto Rico to tell his story. He's give a little bit of sneak peek, or like a little digest version of his story and capital raising, the concept of capital raising. And also he's coming in on Saturday to do our half-day workshop. We have a couple of seats left. So if you're interested in attending that, if you have time, we have 2 seats left. So you can come in there. I'm going to be there. A lot of other people here are going to be there too. So without further ado, sorry I'm long-winded. I want to introduce Mr. Jack Krupey.
Thank you, Matt. Should I stay on the stage or stand? I don't know. I know I'm a small guy. I don't know if everyone can see me if I'm not up this far here, but I guess this works. So thank you everyone for coming. I left Rochester in 2008. I've only been back a few times, so it's been a crazy day or two. I got in late last night. Just kind of drove around today. Drove around Park Ave. Drove around Monroe Ave. Felt like I got out of a time machine when I was about to walk into JD Oxford's, And, I'm about 20 years too old to be in that bar, so I turned around and went to the old man bar down the street. Yeah, it's great to be here. So I actually, I'm just going to tell my story. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, and I'm going to talk a little bit about taxes because April 15th is coming around the corner. So I'm not a CPA or an official advisor, but as someone who's been in the business a long time, it's always good to network and talk about some tax opportunities, ways that we could all talk to our CPAs about saving money. And I'm also obviously going to talk a little bit about how my rise and my fall and sort of how I approach the real estate business at this point. So here's the disclaimer. I'm not a tax advisor, blah, 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 blah.
Love it. Perfect.
So I came up here in 1997. I went to RIT. I'm from New Jersey originally. And I thought I was going to be this high-powered computer consultant. I was really a nerd. I was into information technology. And RIT had a great program. And within a year, I had a part-time job. I was making a ton of money, even on the side. And thought I was going to be this hotshot computer guy. And right when I graduated, the rug got pulled out from under me. It was the first of many, really three big crashes I've been through already. That was the 2001 .com crash. Fortunately, though, I actually had interned for a company in Rochester. It was a company called NetSet Go, which is now referred to as NetSet Gone because it went bankrupt about 2 years later. And it was a good start. It gave me some stability. It gave me a W-2 job, and it gave me the ability to buy some real estate. So how it really got started was I went to Las Vegas shortly after September 11th. Airfare was about $100. And I was in Vegas. I may or may not have done some mushrooms. And I was realizing that, I have this IT job, but it was kind of a dead-end job at this point. I was making, this is 2001. I'm making 50 grand a year in 2001, which wasn't bad. It was actually a good living for Rochester. I had more money than most of my other friends. I could buy $2 beers at JD Oxford's, but I wasn't happy. I didn't feel like I was actually, growing and building wealth. I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but other than that, I felt kind of stuck. And I'm in Vegas. I see the glitz and the glamour. I'm playing $5 a hand blackjack, and my hand is shaking. And I stop at the Hudson News on the way back to Rochester. I find this book. I just screen grabbed this off of Amazon. It's $4.99 if anyone cares. But this is the book that I bought at a Hudson News, and I read it cover to cover because I'm sitting on AirTran or whatever crappy airline, sitting in the back by the bathroom, so I'm young and broke. And I got all fired up. I read the book almost cover to cover, and I get back the next day. I called my college landlord, a guy named Don McClellan. I don't know if he's still active in the business, but he owned a bunch of rental properties, had his license, and I was like, "Hey, Don, I'd like to get into real estate. Can you give me some advice?" He's like, "Well, Jack, not only can I give you advice, I could actually help you buy a house." And within 30 days, I bought a house, which actually I think Matt could throw a rock at from his office on Garson Avenue. And I bought a house, 1113 Garson, almost no money down in 2002. And I didn't know hardly anything about real estate. I didn't go to a course. I just read this one book, and I just jumped in, ready, fire, aim, and just dove in. And I think it rented for $1,100 a month, 2 units, $550 each. My payment was $683. I had a Countrywide mortgage. Countrywide was great. If you could fog a beer, you could get a mortgage. So that's how I got this started. It was rented it out. My first couple rentals went pretty well. I had decent tenants. They actually paid their rent. Back in 2002, eviction court, you could get somebody in and they don't pay for 30 days. You could be in court within 2 or 3 weeks, and you got them out within a month and a half. It was actually, evictions weren't the problem back then. I bought another one at 256 Pearl Street, and that was an FHA assumable loan, and they owed more than the property was worth. This is, Rochester had been through kind of a recession. Kodak had downsized, and they owed 68. The house was worth 65, and they almost had to write me a check at closing. I had to pay $384. I bought a house. It was crazy. But at that point, I thought I was hot shit. I thought I was going to take over the world, and didn't realize some of the other challenges that eventually come together. So one of the things about this club is real estate can really change your life. As Matt had mentioned, he sold a condo to my now wife. we actually met at this real estate club. We were, I think it was when it was in Henrietta at one point. It was a prior iteration of the club, but you know, I was in here. I gave kind of one of those elevator speeches. This is what I do, and she came up to me. Not many women come up to me. I'm not exactly a chick magnet. And she came up to me and was like, "You got to teach me how to do this stuff." And 18 years later, but the rest is history. So, real estate really does change your life. So, I want to talk a little bit more about the struggle. As Matt said, the only thing shiny about me is my bald head. So it became really difficult to scale. We were wholesaling, we were flipping, we had a bunch of property, we were managing properties for other people, and we were really getting eaten alive by overhead. If you get to scale, then, or if you have a lot of units in one place, if there's a leaky toilet or a clogged drain, you're sending your in-house maintenance guy over. It costs $30 for 1 hour of labor, and you're done. If you don't have scale and you're a small guy and you've got a bunch of properties everywhere, what happened to us is we're spending $150 to have the rotor guy come over, and our $400 a month cash flow is becoming negative 100 in cash flow because there's always something breaking, especially on these houses from 1920, 1930. So we made a ton of mistakes. Our expense ratio was too high, and largely I was going into this without a lot of capital down. So I was trying to do every creative financing way to get into deals, and I flew a little bit too close to the sun. And I have some scars from 2008. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I got into some low income stuff where DSS, you fail a drug test, they stop paying the rent, and it still took a couple months to evict. They trashed the apartment. So I made a lot of mistakes just going into lower quality properties and just trying to grow at all costs instead of being more disciplined about growing. So it caused some challenges, but it also impacted and taught me a lot of lessons on how I wanted to move forward in my real estate career. So eventually what I do now, and I'll talk a little bit about the path to get there in between, but what I've realized is for many people, not everybody, there's a lot of people, if you're a general contractor, you can do your own work, great, build up a portfolio, keep it simple. There's plenty of ways, there's not one right way to do this. But for me, what I realized is I was better suited to get involved with larger deals. The moment you're involved in a 100-unit building, you could actually have in-house property management, including in-house maintenance. Similarly, there's things like self-storage where it's like owning a business, but you're not dealing with toilets. You have tenants that generally are downsizing or upsizing, or parents for a student just paying for a storage facility, and it really is the closest thing to mailbox money. Sometimes there's more to it. Sometimes you could actually create a business around it, create a U-Haul center, but it's really owning a business, not being a landlord. And we get involved with some larger construction projects where it's a very sophisticated private equity fund essentially that's running the deal. It's not lending your brother-in-law money to try to build a house. It's a very sophisticated operation. And I've just found that for me, it's been better to invest in those deals. And what's great about it is I can actually raise capital for those deals through my fund and be a partner in a deal without actually having to do as much of the work. Because even very smart, sophisticated, successful operators, when you need to raise millions of dollars in 30 or 60 days for a good deal, there's not enough time to raise the money, and it's very difficult to have those conversations over and over again. So if you have a few partners who have a tribe of investors who can invest alongside, it's worth it to them to make another partner in the deal just to bring the money. One of the other things, I'm going to talk a little bit more about taxes in a little while, but does anyone know on residential what the typical depreciation schedule is? Over how many years can you depreciate typically a single family house? Anybody know? 27 and a half. So yeah, that's true. One of the best things about multifamily apartments is that there's a thing called cost segregation where you could hire an engineering firm to do a study. And if you have a 200-unit building, there's 200 bathrooms, 200 kitchens, 200 HVAC units, bunch of roofs, maybe 20 roofs over 20 buildings. And they look at all those and they say, what is the average life of these? Many of them are 7 years, many of them are 10 years. And with bonus depreciation, anything with 15 years or less in the life cycle, as of 2017, you can take 100% of that the first year as bonus depreciation. That has since sunset down from 80% down to 60%, but there's the new tax bill that's in Congress right now. And again, I'm not, as of like a couple weeks ago, it didn't seem like it was going to get pulled out of the bill, but it's likely that it's going to go back to 100%. And what that means for an investor is if you have a building big enough to do cost seg, you can likely get almost 100 cents of your down payment back. So if you're putting 100,000 down or you invest 100,000 into a deal, you're likely to get between 70 and 100% of your money as a tax write-off that year through a loss under K1. So if you're a landlord and you have a bunch of property you've owned for a long time and it's fully depreciated, or you're collecting 50 grand a year in rent and you're only getting 20,000 in tax deductions from your straight line 27.5 year depreciation, there's a scenario where by buying a new building, you're going to actually not pay tax instead of paying taxes. So the larger deals are way more tax efficient. So, all right, it's not supposed to show the last slide before the first slide, but I think the timing of my Excel went off here. So again, I started here in 2001, was here until 2008. I'm not here to just tell my entire story, but eventually what happened is a bunch of hedge funds in New York were buying the non-performing loans after the financial crisis. So after building the business in Rochester, having some struggles, eventually I decided to move to New York because all the hedge funds needed real estate people. They needed people who had flipped houses, who bought at the auction. So I ended up going down to New York City, and I worked at a private equity fund. I was literally on Wall Street November of 2008. I lived on Wall Street, and I worked on Wall Street. My commute to the office was actually further vertically. Because of the elevator, I didn't actually rappel, but and I had this crazy run in New York. I lost some money here. I had kind of left Rochester, honestly, with my tail between my legs a little bit, and was really at the bleeding edge of the financial crisis down in New York. And so we were buying non-performing mortgages. We were buying second liens in some cases for 3 cents on a dollar. People took out home equity lines of credit, and then their house was underwater, but the banks would still sell them for pennies on the dollar. Many of those loans actually paid off in full because the government pushed a lot of loan modifications, and so many less properties foreclosed than we thought would have back then. And that's largely a good thing. And overall, we actually made way more money by modifying loans and working out deals with borrowers who had a short-term job loss and got behind on their mortgage and couldn't afford 30 grand to reinstate all their back payments, but they could make a 2 or 3 grand a month mortgage payment. So we largely created win-win situations, and we modified a lot of loans, and eventually, if they paid us for a year, we could sell that loan back to a bank. So we were flipping paper instead of flipping houses, and it was really a great run. We ended up partnering with a private equity fund, and I was making more money than I ever thought I would in my life. But the problem was, it was the Wall Street grind. It was a bunch of ex-Bear Stearns executives who started this business, and I partnered with them. And they were the type of people that would take pride that they left before the sun rose and before their kids woke up, and they didn't get home at night until after their kids went to sleep during the week. So, literally a business partner said to me, it's like, I just don't see my kids during the week, like it was a badge of honor. And I don't have kids that I know of, but I am an entrepreneur that has really wanted that passive income, that freedom of real estate, not to be in the Wall Street grind. So, I got very disillusioned, and I wanted to go back and do something more entrepreneurial. And I was also, in New York City, which is the, other than maybe Silicon Valley, the highest cost of living, in the country. And when you're not a real estate professional and you're working sort of a Wall Street type job, you're paying 50% income tax. 50%. It's 37 to the state, it's 37 to the government, federal government, 10 or 11% to the state, and then another couple percent to New York City. You're literally losing half of your income to taxes. And so I eventually burned out on that. I moved to Puerto Rico, which we're not going to cover in this presentation, but Puerto Rico has some amazing tax incentives. So I moved down to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and eventually they bought me out of this company. And I'm just kind of skipping around because I've really customized this presentation. I apologize. I'm not like a seasoned public speaker. I'm not the guy who's like, hey, who does this? Say yeah. So hopefully I'm giving good content, good story here. Oh, is that going to stay? Oh, I thought that was slow. So thank you. So now what we do is I built a business around passive income. we invest, and to back up a bit, I started investing passively while I was in New York. So I wasn't allowed to invest in mortgages. I didn't have the time to, come up here and try to, own a single family or two family house. I didn't know Mark Updegraff at the time, so property management was a nightmare for me. I owned a property management business, and it cost me a lot of money, so I wasn't really comfortable kind of owning a two family house somewhere, just giving it to whoever the manager was at the time. So I ran across a friend from one of the real estate events there that had been sort of in the same boat as me, and he eventually started investing in larger deals. He bought a 50 unit and eventually bought a 100 unit. And to me, the 100 unit plus is the sweet spot. Those are corporate level, institutional level deals, and they're largely lent to by the government. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will lend on these large buildings, and there's a barrier to entry. You can't just jump in and buy a deal, buy a 100 unit. Fannie Mae requires you to have a partner that's previously done it, so you kind of have to buy your way into a partnership. And so rather than me try to recreate the wheel, I started partnering with these groups. They needed capital, and they were willing to sort of let me ride shotgun and learn how to do it. So I started investing along with a bunch of seasoned operators like my friend who'd started investing. And we have minor pieces. We don't own 100% of these buildings, but we own 2% of a building in Jacksonville, Florida, 5% in Fort Lauderdale as an example, Phoenix, Dallas, Vegas. We're in these, we have about 10 operators, 12 operators, it changes constantly, and that we're partnered with that are institutional level partners that source opportunities. Most of them look at 200 or 300 a year, and they find 2 to buy. So we're getting sent 24 deals a year, and we may do 12 of them. So I just found for me, it's easier to be on the money raising side as a passive investor that has a seat at the table than trying to build this entire business and chase properties. And it's just a better fit for me. I'm not saying it's the best way to go. It's just what's worked for me. Because a few of you know me. A few of you have been around since 2000, early 2000s when I was around. And it's eventually I learned sort of what my skill set is, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And I'm not good at that operational taskmaster, set up processes, yell at people all day type of thing. So it's been a better fit for me. This is one of the deals we invested in 2020. It's a 288 unit in Phoenix. And pretty straightforward. It's no different than flipping a house, except you're just flipping over the course of 12 to 24 months, you're flipping individual apartments as they become vacant. And a bunch of exterior CapEx. The playbook on these is you find something that's old and tired, but not exactly destroyed. Just something ideally built in maybe the 70s or 80s. It's got old Formica countertops. It's got carpet. It's got the original cabinets from when it was built. And you just do new kitchens, new bathrooms, new flooring. Maybe you spend $5,000 to $10,000. And if you could raise the rent $200 to $300, I don't know what the rent bumps here are in Rochester, but in parts of the Southeast and Sun Belt, you get $300 to $500 rent increase when you renovate a new unit. And there's a severe shortage of workforce housing. Any new construction is going to be at the top end of the market because you can't afford to build housing for the middle class, housing for the workforce. If you're building, you have to build high end, unless there's some government partnership that allows you to keep your costs down. And the costs are getting worse for construction too. With interest rates, supply chain, the cost to build is skyrocketing, and the permitting is down in most markets as well. So this was a deal we bought in 2020. Within a year and 2 days, we sold it and doubled our money in basically a year. So this was an outlier scenario. Everyone's got those, but look, if I want to give a presentation in PowerPoint, I've got to at least show one good deal. So again, this was a completely passive investment. We came in as a limited partner. Often what we do also is we negotiate preferential terms because we're bringing in a bunch of investors with us. So that's something you all can do too. If you're going to club up and actually put money into a deal, the more money coming in, the better terms you can get. Even if it's a private deal within people in this group. If you're bringing, he who has the gold should set the terms. So, if you're able to bring enough money to make the deal happen, you should get a better return for you and your group. This is a little bit about our team. You may recognize the lady at the bottom. She was from the beach picture before. So, she's the CFO. She does our accounting. She basically does all the detail work that I don't do, much to her chagrin. We also have William Vidani, who I met in New York, and Zach Parizia, who's actually I met probably about 5 years ago. He was actually trying to sell me another investment opportunity and followed up so well that eventually I hired him. How are we doing on time here, by the way? Almost the end, okay. So I do want to talk a little bit. April 15th is next week. I have a buddy who's a urologist, and I'm turning 45. He keeps trying to convince me that I should schedule a colonoscopy on April 15th. Because if you're going to take it in the, you might as well do it twice in the same day. He's a real comedian. He also, all right, I'm going to go down the path of jokes right now. So one more. He said when he gives his clients a prostate exam, he asks them, do they want one finger or two? And they always ask, why years? Just second opinion. All right, that's it for the jokes. But there's a lot of traditional items for taxes. I mean, everyone knows the 401k. There is the solo 401k, where if you own your own LLC, you can deduct like 60-something thousand in earned income for the year. But I alluded to the cost segregation here and the real estate professional status. So I'm going to do a quick deeper dive on that. And then briefly, for anyone who still has a W-2, there's another interesting loophole that I discovered through one of my clients who was a doctor, that oil and gas does not have passive loss limits. So if you're a high earner, whether or not you have real estate, but if you have real estate that doesn't help you and you've got a huge loss to carry forward, there's some interesting oil and gas opportunities that offset active income. Comes right off the top, like if you invested in a 401k. And in New York, in the top bracket, that means you'd probably be saving 42 cents on the dollar immediately for investing in something like an oil and gas opportunity. That's nothing I'm involved in, other than I know a few people just through the groups I've been involved with. But I know sometimes there's new people in the group that have a W-2 and haven't really figured it all out yet. So just throwing it out there. So I mentioned before, real estate depreciation on larger assets is generally between 50 and 90% per dollar invested comes directly as a K1 loss. So as opposed to single family, where it's often just a very straight line, you might get a few thousand a year, it's very powerful. So, and passive offsets passive, active offsets active. So if you have a W-2 and you generate real estate losses, you'll accrue your rentals tax-free, but it's not going to offset your W-2 income. Unless, and again, I'm not a CPA, you need to talk to your own CPA. Some are more aggressive than others, but I'm in a number of mastermind groups, and I know probably 20 seven-figure earners, doctors, dentists, lawyers, that they have the business or a high-paying seven-figure job, and their spouse qualifies as a real estate professional, and it requires two things: 750 hours in the real estate profession, but more specifically 500 of them in rental property activities. And again, I'm not a CPA myself, but I know multiple people who, when you combine the spouse together as a team, they're able to take the losses from real estate that the spouse generates and offset their entire active income, whether it's W-2 as a higher earning professional or as a business owner. It is probably the most powerful loophole out there. And again, I had a conversation earlier where it's, someone's CPA said that, they basically didn't recommend it for them, but I know there's CPA firms that specialize on it. And, the biggest thing is the documentation. You don't cheat to just say you're doing it. You actually do it. You spend the hours, you have the documentation so that, if there is an audit, it holds up. The last thing we help a lot of people with is 1031 exchanges. If you have an LLC with 4 or 5 rental properties in it and you're a burned out landlord, and you're tired of dealing with it, you want to move to Florida, you could actually 1031 a number of single family properties and do a partnership through a tenant in common into large multifamily syndications. And it avoids all taxes on the sale. It's obviously, there's a bunch of steps to it. You need to use an intermediary, but it's very possible to take, a pool of single family houses. It usually needs to be at least $500,000 in proceeds, but look, prices in Rochester have went up the last couple of years, right? Everyone's excited about that. So, keep in mind that there's a way to 1031. You don't have to 1031 and buy something yourself. Some of the hardest problems with the 1031s are finding deals to 1031 into. So you could actually do this through a larger syndication with a very sophisticated partner. It's like partnering with a private equity fund or an investment bank in many cases, where You know, they're airtight, they've got their processes, they've got great reporting, and it's a great way to potentially, you know, move towards retirement without having to buy another building that you have to figure out and manage. Lastly, this is what a tax return looks like. I don't know if there's a pointer here, but for those who can't see, there's a huge loss in the bottom. You can make millions of dollars in income and actually show a net operating loss every year. Many of you probably do this already, but it's extremely powerful. When you have tax rates at 37 to 50%, the compounding effect of actually showing a loss and carrying forward is probably one of the most powerful things you can do. And you know, I've gotten asked many times, what's the best return? What's the best guaranteed return on investment I can get? You know, the answer is proper tax planning and structure. That's the only, death and taxes are the two guarantees. And if you structure it right and you're saving 5, 10, 15 to 37% a year on taxes and able to grow that money tax-free, that compound effect is probably the best thing you can make, the best decision you can make for your financial future. So that's about it for me. Thank you all very much for listening. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jack. Stay up here. All right. Anybody got any questions? I know some of you actually come into the workshop on Saturday. Yeah, Dan, Carlo. Oh, Mark's gonna be there, of course. Yeah, Brian Good. Yeah, Francisco. But yeah, we have a more extended version of this in terms of like specifically, we try our best at having something that's like a half an hour long on these Thursday nights, but we're gonna have a half day together. And hopefully, if we don't get blown away or drowned by the rain, we'll have time to walk to Dinosaur Barbecue after our meeting on Saturday. So any questions you have on the passive investing or capital raising side of the space for Jack? Yes.
So what is your minimum investment, like let's say if you're putting together a pool of people, what would be one of your minimums if you want a person to have?
So for us, we generally have a $50,000 minimum, which we can waive if needed. And yeah, that's largely because if you have a $25,000 minimum, most people throw in 25. I know some people who make it 100. It really depends on your circle. You know, if you're in Pittsburgh in a really nice neighborhood with a bunch of doctors, maybe you make it 100. You know, if you're just starting out, you know, it really depends. But there are legal and compliance things as well. I mean, when you do a formal offering, we run Reg D 506Cs, which mean we're registered with the SEC. We're only allowed to work with accredited investors. We need to file a thing called the Blue Sky. So there's some actual overhead and paperwork involved. So generally, it's, you know, I'd say 50 to 100 is probably the right number for most situations, unless there's a special situation like you're buying an $80,000 house on Avenue D, which back in my day there was no $80,000 houses on Avenue D.
Anybody else? We got time for one question, maybe two. Yes, Neil.
One, you had mentioned 1031 exchanges. I was just wondering what your opinion might be on Delaware statutory trusts as long as needs, and the other was what's your buying criteria for your fund?
So the question was about the 1031 exchanges, about Delaware statutory trusts. And you know, my opinion on those is they're an option, but largely the actual investment returns are not as good. It's more of a broker-dealer product. You're not allowed to have a value add component, so it ends up being these supposed Class A, super safe, simple deals. Maybe you're buying a 5% cap rate type. You know, a couple of years ago, they would have been buying an office building at a 5 cap, which would be a disaster right now. So largely, I feel like the returns aren't as good because it's more of the broker-dealer kind of cookie-cutter financial industry where there's so much overhead that you're kind of overpaying. The type of deals we do, you're a legitimate partner in a syndication as a tenant in common, basically investing alongside a group like ours to, you know, buy a multifamily building or a self-storage facility where you're going to do a value-add component where you can make a 15-20% overall return if all goes well, annualized. So I just think if you're going from the hands-on landlord to trying to be more passive, but you still want a better return and not just going retail to, you know, kind of pay retail, then I think you want to do a tenant in common with an actual syndication partner rather than just put money in a broker dealer. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
I was wondering what your buying criteria was. Do you look at development properties as well? Do you like build-to-rents?
Sure. So what is our investment criteria? It really is a little of everything, but like I say, our bread and butter, at least half of what we've done is multifamily value add, that 100 to 300 unit building, Class B, workforce housing, kind of middle class housing, where it's dated, but still, nothing really wrong with it other than the perfect scenario is you got, some 75-year-old person who's owned it for 20 years. They're in it cheap. They're just not pushing rents. They're not being aggressive with it. And that's the best scenario. We've also seen scenarios in the last 6 to 12 months where there's distressed groups that bought 2 years ago. Interest rates have went up. Some of them have bad bridge loan debt that's variable rate where people are getting squeezed and they have to sell. So, a lot of people have said they're waiting for the real estate crash to happen. I don't think it's happening on residential, but it's happening right now in pockets. And it's the distressed, it's basically just bad loan terms. So there's always some level of distress. Right now it's right under our noses. And multifamily apartments where people have bad debt is one of those markets of distress right now. We're certainly looking very closely at it.
One more question. Yes, Jack, right?
I was living in Puerto Rico.
Oh, life in Puerto Rico is great. It's tax rate, and again, as a real estate professional, it doesn't move the needle as much, but you don't pay capital gains tax, and you only pay 4% on any income you make off island. So if anyone, if you know anyone that's like in internet marketing, consulting, stock traders especially, you can move to Puerto Rico. A lot of the crypto traders are there because you don't pay short-term capital gains either. So if you're day trading, you don't pay $1 in tax. It's 85 and sunny most of the year. It was called Act 20 and Act 22. Now it's all consolidated under Act 60. And I've been there 5 years now. We still keep a place in New Jersey, but I'm there at least half the year. And the network there is incredible. It's kind of like joining a country club, but instead of having to get paid to join, you save 90% of your taxes for being there. So, yeah, and it's 85 almost all year round. So come visit me in the winter.
All right, let's see a round of applause for Jack.
No, and he's sticking around for a little bit too, so. All right, last thing, I think, all right, so, cool. First 90 days, 90 days to your first rental, okay? So, who has yet to buy a rental property here? Raise your hand. All right, you want to be here. Who wants to buy their second rental property? Raise your hand. Or third? Okay, all right. Same principles. Ashley Kerr, who knows who Ashley Kerr is? Anybody? All right, so she's hosted the Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast. Arguably second to the TCO method, the second best podcast on the planet. So she's coming next month. She's gonna have book signings here as well. Super, she's an amazing educator. So she's gonna come in next month and teach you how to get your next first investment property or second or third within 90 days. So we have a QR code here. I think it's a little bit bled off on the side here, but take a picture of it. Hopefully the QR code works. But register for the event. This one's we're probably gonna be opening up the entire ballroom for this event here. So you need to register for that, okay? And also, if you're an experienced veteran, buy a book and get it signed by her and give it as gifts, all right? It's an amazing opportunity. So anyways, thanks for coming tonight. Definitely network and meet some people and make some friends. Break.